Hi, everyone. It is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025, and welcome to the Techspressionist Salon number 99. The topic of the salon is floating questions, and our moderator here today is Erin Ko from New York City. My name is Colin, and I'm a Techspressionist. So Erin tells stories through a mix of traditional art making methods with new technologies, often to address our complicated love-hate relationship with technology. Classically trained in fine arts with 20 plus years of experience as a game and app developer, her practice builds on hybrid approaches to art, sculpture, video, sound, written word, music, and performance, with reality expanding technologies viewers can opt in or out of. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Erin. Take it
Uh,
away.
All right. Thank you, Colin, and thank you everyone who's here. Really, thank you for the amazing lineup of artists who have agreed to share their work and their thoughts on the subject today, which is essentially discussing digital privilege, media literacy, the tension between the joy and responsibility of creative agency in a hyper-connected culture. Um, we are at a very strange moment in time. Today's Yom Kippur. This does not escape me, a day of atonement in a world of distress. And I'm really asking floating questions. I really want to ask how artistic practice can illuminate question and reimagine the signals and the manipulative forces that bind us. Because I feel like as Techspressionists, as people who touch media, make media, can parse media, we are in a unique position. So everyone I've invited today is someone who really blows me away with the amount of activism that is present in their work and social consciousness, and you all approach it in different and courageous ways, and I'm very grateful to hear from all of you. I would like to ask Verneda to go first, if that's cool. Verneda Lights is a visual artist, photographer, performance poet, author, retired physician, and griot of South Carolina's I'm gonna
Gullahgeechee,
Gullahgeechee.
Gullahgeechee.
Okay, nation, the Gullah people. Her
Yes.
body of work, I think that's so cool, and I hope you speak on this. Her body of work spans from digital, traditional, fine art, and surface pattern design. Her most recent work focuses on traditional and abstract portraiture as a tool for storytelling and stress management in caregiving situations. And her work has been exhibited at Albrecht-Kemper Museum of Art, Edward Kemp and M. Kennedy Institute, and Harlem Fine Arts Show. Please take it away, Verneda.
All right. Thank you very much, Erin. It's my pleasure to be here today to speak on arts activism and to identify myself within this genre, this spectrum of artists. My work is at the intersection of digital art, AI, and social justice. And looking back on my life in preparing for this session today, I began to understand the extent to which I've been an arts activist all my life. You know, I was one of those kids that integrated the high schools in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and came face to face with the Jim Crow South. I lived in South Carolina. I grew up in South Carolina. And so we were confronted with the changing United States. And when I was in high school, I started to write poetry and to remain distinguished as a scholar within that integrational set. I wrote poetry in order to explain myself to my classmates because I was definitely a minority. And I began to distinguish myself as a writer while in high school. Then, while at Bryn Mawr College, I had to explain myself to my environment, and poetry became my instrument. People understood and could accept criticism when presented in a poem. And I found that very useful. Okay. And I started a magazine called Raw. It was a Black literary magazine. It's currently in the rare book collection at Emory University. So then, while at University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, I formed a theater group called Ricky Lights and Gilliam Brothers Band. And we performed so that I could pay for my med school books. So that was my way of supporting myself and also making a statement to the city, which is Philadelphia, and the world at large, that the arts had a definite place in a holistic medical education. Then in practice years, I used poetry and then sacred music as a healing instrument. And it was something that helped to integrate the science of my life into my community while serving a function that I found essential, which is the role of the healer. So then we come to the 2000s, the turn of the century, when the world was changing. We were confronted with the post-apocalyptic United States after 9/11. And digital instruments then became my way of adjusting to this change and also finding a different skill set other than medicine. I had stopped my practice and decided to reconfigure my skill set in order to face this changing world, and ran into this dinky little program, Paint, that I found very accessible and fascinating. I wasn't even digitally literate at that point in time, so it was my introduction to the computer. So digital art has played a very, very, very important role in my life over the last 25 years. And then in 2022, I encountered AI. And I was like, wow, here we are. I mean, I was introduced to digital art as accessibility. And then I had to encounter other aspects of uh, digital art, which was AI. But AI was something that was really familiar in a way that I did not like. I encountered familiar demons, white supremacy, sexism, ageism, ableism, you name it. It's there because ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. The thing that's created must bear the fingerprints of the one that created it. So let's take a look at what I saw when I first encountered AI. Okay. Mm, I'm going to see. I'll try to shoot you. Okay. Okay. All right. Do you see my screen?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I started off in 2022, I encountered this image. I typed in, to certain stock phrases to get a feel for what AI was about in terms of their visual vocabulary. I wanted a baseline for what it would do on its own. And I typed in, simple phrases like Black woman, which really turned out bad. And so I tried beautiful Black woman and got this. Okay. So we see here the sort of distorted face. We see an instrument that is not capable of rendering a coherent Black face. And it's been trained on millions upon millions and upon millions of images, but yet its concept of eyes, facial symmetry, nose, mouth, etc., is just thrown when taken out of the white context. So I tried other prompts like Black Lives Matter. And I got this, where we have this semblance of like the uh, police siren and crime scene tape that's configured into something that is a quasi dunce cap. Okay. Then here we have Black Lives Matter. This is AI Night Cafe. And we see again the distortion, the incompetence. If a human being was joined this as part of a practice evaluation when I was in medicine, I would have this person get worked up for dementia. Okay, we say it is demented, and it's demented biologically, neurologically. It's just bad. And then here, I said, okay, well, let's see what it has to say about women. So I put down a simple word, queen. Okay, well, not surprisingly, AI also has problems with women in general. So it's not just Black women that it struggles with, it's the gender itself. So I saw immediately that I would have to um, wrestle with this new instrument. It was in this ascendancy and becoming more and more popular, and I understood the significance of it and the power of its ability to express. So I decided to work with it, which is very exhausting, in order to train it. Because the thing is about AI, you can't run away from it. If you starve it of your input, you never be represented. Okay, never. Because it, by definition, will work with what it is being fed. That is the information that it takes as reality and shapes it. Okay, so in the process, I didn't start off right away working with faces because you saw the distortion and the extent to which it was just off. So I worked with the project I started called Caterpillar Dreams. It's a fable about a young girl a young Black girl who encounters a butterfly, has a conversation with the butterfly, and decides to the butterfly and the girl's conversation is overheard by a caterpillar who is inspired by what they have to say and decides to become a hybrid being. It's genetic destiny based on what it understood to be said by the girl and the butterfly. So here we have a part of the metamorphosis image uh, of caterpillar dreams. We see the formation of the arms and the legs. And here we see that the AI, when not being confronted with race question or cultural differences, is able to begin to delve into creating something that I would consider beautiful, okay, meaningful artistically. And this is the second image where the butterfly, you see it's acquiring more human-like features while still maintaining some aspects of being a butterfly. And this project, the way, was published by Yale Center for Collaborative Arts and Media. And I presented it at the Yale Ultra Space Symposium back in 2023. And this is one of the last images where the butterfly is very definitely taking on human form.
And
And somebody have
is
something?
this I'm sorry, and so this is a book, this is a narrative that you're building? Or
This is a project, and is comprised of 12 images. Um, and the images and the narrative associated with it was published in the Yale Ultra Space Symposium
I see.
printed volume.
Beautiful.
Was, was published in 2024, but the presentation at Yale Ultra Space Symposium was in 2023.
It's
Okay,
beautiful.
so they,
We have about maybe 3 more minutes so that
okay,
everyone has
let's
time to
let's go
speak.
on. Okay,
Okay.
so here we go. With Black dandies. Okay, so there's a lot about AI that is prophetic in a way. It's a seer. And by the way, we have AI that is foreshadowed in things like scriptures, like in the New Testament, where you have Python, which is the language that we use to create generative AI. Python is the name of a spirit of divination that followed the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. So I think it relates to that more than what they're saying it relates to. But let's move on. And this is part of my Black Dandy series. It's a time traveling tale. And I'm using speculative fiction and Afrofuturism as a way to approach the resistance in, in presentation of Black presence and Black future, Black past that we are experiencing now culturally um, within the technology realm. So here also is a regressive photo of my grandmother, speculative fiction portrait of my grandmother, whom I encountered in my time traveling journey
Um,
using regressive prompts. And I think she even looks like me. And I tested it with my cousins, and they said, "Yep, she's one of us." So, anyway, that's her sister. And this is my sister, Bess, who was an opera singer. She denied a career as an opera singer because she was Black. And so using speculative fiction and AI, I recreated my sister's dream and had her dressed up for a night at the Metropolitan Opera and the Met
Amazing.
Gala specifically. And I did a series based on that. Okay, and this is one of those images. And this is the last of the series. A new series is called Baptism. Like I mentioned, that I use sacred music in my artistic forays and also for personal renewal. And I use the baptism ritual, which to me is very sacred. And this being Yom Kippur, why not share it? You know, here we have uh, one of my more recent paintings done this year, AI Mid Journey, another, and another. And this
It's
is the last
beautiful.
two. Thank
I
you.
think, oh, thank you. Wow, those are amazing.
Okay,
Um,
yes.
oh, there we go.
Yes, this is me, y'all, and my journey. And I have, there are many issues surrounding what's going on with AI, and there are things that are restricted regarding what you can do with Black history. So I made a list of objective AI instruments, and also I put uh, got some information about tools that we can use to keep ourselves safe from being scraped by, unscrupulously scraped by AI instruments, and then used for developing things that we can't really benefit from. So I'm going
Let's,
to,
I was going to say, I love that. If you could share that, we could talk about it more at the end,
yes, I'm in
would
the
be
process.
fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the process of sharing it now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That
No,
was amazing. Beautiful work.
thank you.
Verneda, there's a really wonderful interview between her and Colin that was done in, I think, 2023 that I'll
Mhm,
suggest you check out. It's really great. I got a comprehensive idea of your work. Very impressive stuff.
mhm.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
would love it if Eric were to speak next. Eric Cook is an artist, educator, and activist who has been actively defending free expression and building community in Washington Square Park since 2016. This is his 10th anniversary here doing that. He was widely recognized as the 6th hardest working living artist in NYC. Eric's art can be seen regularly in Washington Square Park, as well as on light posts and mailboxes across the world. Please welcome Eric.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this panel. I am humbled and flattered. My journey as an artist and activist started as a troublemaker and provocateur when I was young. In high school, I fought in the theater club, I fought against the principal so that we could have matinees for the students when they tried to eliminate those. And I also impeached the French club president and took over so we could go to Disneyland. That, you know, morality-wise, maybe not so great. But technology-wise, I used to be a graphic designer 30-some million years ago, and I started with PageMaker and Quark and all that stuff. Back in the day, I was doing production design for newspapers. And so I got very keyed into words. I was at that time also an actor and a producer and a writer and just trying to run a theater. And so my technology sort of got stunted as I went more into production and theater and away from that. And I did that for about 30 years. And in 2012, I had a mild traumatic brain injury. I fell off of a wall onto my head, and my whole life changed. I mean, I walked away from it, but I was no longer interested in all the things that I was interested in, and I sort of fell into a creative black hole that my wife helped me out of, and I ended up being a painter. I started with watercolor, and I moved into printmaking, and I'd like to share some of that with you now as we go into, here we go. Let's see, what do we got? Here we are. Can you all see this? So I'm just going to pull up some of the stuff here. Let's see. What's some of my older stuff? Here we go at the top. Oh, I had it all numbered and everything. Here we go. So this is one of the first pieces that I did, carving out of linoleum. How do I move this forward? I just hit the button here. Oh, there we go. It's my Washington Square Arch. I've been an artist at Washington Square Arch for Washington Square for about 10 years. And I just ended up there because they had a bathroom and it was a beautiful place to be. And until the pandemic, it was a very peaceful place to hang out. And after the pandemic, it was still peaceful, but there were about 10,000 more young people in it. And that upset the balance of what people were appropriate. Oh, this is from my series of UNFTs. This is sort of a statement against NFTs in that they were all hand-drawn, unique, individual pieces. And I think I did 5, and mine was side-eye stork as opposed to like the ape, whatever, and all the crazy things. And then I'm not sure. Oh, this is a little picture from my work in Washington Square Park. It's just a quick thing. This is a picture of me with my bell and my sign saying, "We are living art, stop suppression." In 2023, mainly because of the change in the drug rules, the legalization of marijuana, it was so poorly carried out. It ended up being massive amounts of drug sales in Washington Square Park, and it took over the number of artists in the park, and it created a severe imbalance. And the authorities decided to handle that imbalance with the most violent tactics possible, and came in starting July 15th with massive force, conflating all the artists with drug dealers. And so after a couple of weeks of taking severe abuse, we all banded together, formed a little community. I assigned myself a spokesperson of the group because, as anybody who does community organizing knows, nobody wants to take the lead on anything, and very few people want to do the actual work. Starting July 30th, we had I'm trying to scroll down. Here we go. Is that working? No. So starting July 30th, we had a rally that had about 300 artists and community members that came out. Konami was one of the speakers. We had a number of speakers, and I wish I could get this to scroll down here, but I can't. And we laid down what we considered to be the law, that we were no longer going to take the abuse, and we were going to stand up and fight. And that took a lot of forms. And the main thing about it was that it had to deal with being very creative, because we're just artists out there, musicians, buskers, fortune tellers, fashion designers, and we don't really have any weapons. And we are faced with a regular onslaught of people who have not only tear gas, guns, but the ability to detain and arrest us. And so we had to ride a fine line of being supremely annoying without being totally illegal and having everybody lose their livelihood every day. And so we set up a couple of regular things. One was a Wednesday, what I called a 6 at 6, where we would walk around the circle. My main weapon of choice was a bell from the 3rd Avenue elevated line from way back 100 years ago. It's super loud and very annoying. And we started going around the circle on Wednesdays, ringing that bell, letting everybody know that we were not going to take the trouble anymore. And as during the day, when the police would kick out the artists, I would go and ring the bell right in their face, call forward the public. And a lot of times the public came to the aid of these artists and saved them from being detained, confiscating their work and everything. In fact, I was threatened with arrest for using my bell on a couple of officers who said that it was illegal to follow them around through the park, annoying them. Luckily, that I was being filmed while I was doing this action, and they looked ridiculous.
Eric, do you have video that you're trying to access? If you like stop.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time scrolling.
Well,
oh, here we go.
try,
Now it's going down.
Yeah, or like try stop share. Okay, you got it. I was going to say if you stop sharing and then scroll and share, you might be able to access
This
it.
is
It'd be great.
that's a photo from me from the main action there. Oh, and this is also, I took to branding a lot of our actions. So this is a little sticker that we did for the Wednesdays 6 at 6, or the 4 at 4 in the winter because it was cold, butterfly arch. And here I am at one of the 6 at 6s. You can see the bell right up in my face there, and some of the flyers that are the big posters that we used. We generally got, maybe a handful of people to walk around, and I would walk around ringing the bell, and I would just yell out, "I am living art. You are living art. We are living art." And people would call it back, and it was a beautiful expression of joy and power, I thought. Oh, this is one of my early watercolors. I built a machine for making art in Washington Square Park. It spins forwards and backwards at about 350 miles an hour. I built it as a way to engage people in the park here. This is a new piece I have, Fuck Cancer. Surprisingly, one of the most popular pieces I have out on display in the park. I regularly, every day, in fact, when I'm in the park, I give out free stickers. A lot of them have, I won't say political, but community messages. The fountain is filthy. This is a way of letting people know that we can have a clean fountain in the park if they just took the effort for it. This is a pastel of Herbie Hancock, We Are Living Art poster, spun art of Trump, and some spun art from Grogo, Cute Kitty. In the pandemic, those of us who stuck around New York City, I'm sure, felt all of this, and this was sort of a way I expressed that. Another sticker from the park, because if you live in New York City, you know there is just no place to go. And Pro Row, another piece that I'd done now. And then a year ago, almost exactly, the Rangers started a whole new program of elimination where they just came in with a dozen Rangers and cops, and every day would kick out everybody from the park. And so they were, let's see, this is October 2nd. On October 2nd, they were arresting Urjan for just showing his art there. This is also another surprising, not so surprisingly popular piece here. And then I did a series of mermaids for the Mermaid Festival, some funky ladies. And then these are pieces that I painted of the Washington Square artists on 100-year-old sheet music. This was a piece I did for the Zillion zillion guitar rally that we did. And there's me yelling at everybody. Yeah, I think I'm just about out of time, but you know, it's the main thing for me is if you fight, you will win. And it's not going to be easy, and it's super exhausting. But you just have to find a way to make it work within your life and your lifestyle. And I don't know that I've done that, but I really continue working and fighting every day. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you so much, Eric. Yeah, I want to talk more definitely at the end. Everyone should go visit Eric in Washington Square Park and talk with him and check out what he's doing. He's an incredibly interesting person. Yeah, thank you. I think
How do I get this
next,
up?
I would love to invite Anne and Clara. I don't know if you guys were planning on speaking together because you often collaborate. That's sort of how I invited you, or if you wanted to speak separately, but I feel like this is a good transition into,
Perfect.
so.
Yeah, we're going to talk about shared projects, but one after the other. Clara, do you wanna start out?
Sure. And then we'll jump in for the last one. Yeah. Erin, permission to rock and roll? Is there
Rock
an
and roll, baby.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name's Clara Francesca, and Gama Chatimatova for those practicing today. I'm calling in from the Muncie Lenape lands in Queens right now. And whilst it might be performative for me to say that, in the spirit of the work we all do, I'm encouraging folks, especially those of us who appear white, to research missing and murdered Indigenous women and Black women, particularly underrepresented in the workspace community. Okay, and with that said, Anne and I are part of XRE, the Extended Reality Ensemble, and we are the co-founders of this ensemble collective. We're very, very proud to work with people like Erin and other collaborators. And the core of XRE has always been doing multinational XR, in the technical sense of XR, artist tech collective, and we're a curatorial team. So we have that banner, and then inside that banner we have projects. And one project I'm talking about today is this piece that we created called Letters Without Borders, which, sorry for my typo there with journeys, which was asking this question: what are the similarities that we share across borders, across time and space, across cultures and nations and journeys and stories? And we did a few versions of Letters Without Borders, and there are a few more to come. And all of them have a common thread of this conversation around borders, and those conversations that I've got there on the slide. There's an immersive element to all the versions of Letters Without Borders we've done. And then there's always a marriage of the analog with the technology, which became very central to all of our XRE works. And I would say underpinning all of this is every XRE work is asking a question around how do we coexist alongside our differences as humans? Can we? Whether that means we give space to something or stop engaging with something, or connect and deepen an understanding and conversation. So Letters Without Borders, the source idea kind of was birthed from a question for me as an Australian migrant family to Australia, now a migrant to New York City, and North America spaces that we call that now. And these are my grandparents with my aunts there in the photo. And when they migrated to Australia, they were receiving severe racism. And yet they had come from occupied Italian Eritrea when the Italians invaded Eritrea, and they were very horrific to them and the local people there. And then when Italy was expelled from Eritrea and they came to Australia, the irony was that as decades went by, my Italian family that had suffered tremendous racism at sort of the more wider side of the conversation were in turn being horrific to often a very Muslim leading conversation side and being really cruel to the next wave of migrants, to Australian refugees. So the question became how ridiculous and horrific this behavior is, not just in my personal family, but the irony being that when we move across time and space and borders, we're often sharing the same stuff. We often write back to family members. We love them. We might migrate because we're trying to find access to funds to send back to home, or maybe we're privileged migrants or colonizers or refugees. What does this mean when we move across time and space? And isn't it weird that often our cores are saying the same things to our family members and loved ones. And why can't we see that in one another more often alongside our differences? So then Anne, who will speak in a moment, and I started sort of playing with what could this version of Letters Without Borders be. And the first version we did was at Culture Lab. You'll see here, these are migration boats that a collaborator, Alvaro from Colombia, did for us. So the audience walked, so the performance we did at Culture Lab, the audience walked through these migration boats, which was, I found, very, very moving. And then they watched a projection piece of artwork that had fused tech together with migrant stories. And then we migrated the audience from the front door to all these spaces in this immersive way. People could get private poems that had been written about their migrant story, given a prompt, and have that typed up. And you see at the back wall there were giant poems that had been put up as well, talking about migration and movement and Letters Without Borders and what things we want to say to loved ones. And then the audience culminated in a room where you see, this is a collection of different photos from different angles. It was a performance theatrical piece in the round. We had 3 poets speaking in Italian, Mandarin, and Spanish. And there we have Anna on the DJ poetry there, with a child participating with this device called the Playtronica to create this a sense of different sounds and stories and the commonalities alongside the diversity. And then underneath the audience's chairs was paper and pen, and the audience could write their own little haiku or mini poem about their experience of Letters Without Borders. And then as they left, and this is me doing the sample of it, we did a program with Experiments with Google, a product that Bill T. Jones's company created, where you speak your poem and very simple body sensor, the poem gets captured with audio caption and then sent to your phone as a GIF. And now the audience had this GIF that they could send to their family members and friends and continue this ever evolving conversation. I'll wrap this up because we're moving out of time. We did a version of Letters Without Borders at Manifest.io in Berlin this year, which was spectacular. It built on this theme and this idea. We collaborated with Spatial Media Lab to make this immersive performance space. So the audience came in, it was in 2 parts. The first part was audience listening to the speakers, where we had stories in multiple languages of people's journeys across borders. And then you saw these lights in the bottom right-hand corner. You see there, these lines and these borders were fluctuating throughout the performance. And then they came together and created this lung, this rib cage that you see on the ground there that our colleague built for us. And then as that's happening, the audience member in the second part could engage with this Playtronica device where everything was censored with electrics to trigger sounds that are common with all humans. Laughter, claps, every single sound, and built with the audience members. It was all live human stuff. We created this incredible music, and none of the music was not of human body, which was, I think, quite spectacular and beautiful. And here you see people playing with the gear here to create this sort of sensorial experience. And then the performance was on a loop and it started up again. We are all migrants on our way back home, because the audience was asked to write things that they were inspired to write on the wall as that was happening. And this is to give you a sense of the breadth of the festival. I'll hand over to Anne for our next 2 projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to briefly talk about our project called Aurora. This is a digital monument here by Will Pappenheimer. Aurora is basically, Aurora basically is based on the status quo of our monuments. So 90% of public sculptures or more in our cities and towns are white men. And the idea was to create a new balance. And of course, it's pretty expensive and pretty time consuming and very hard to just build new monuments. And we thought, oh, digital art can really speed up the process and is such a beautiful medium to make a change. So the idea was to bring gender expansive AR monuments into the space and pair them with the physical sculptures to tell a story and to start conversations. And here you can see the monument for Angela Davis, Mr. Backlash by Erin Ko. She was the first artist to get on board, which I was super grateful for. It was just really amazing. So with Clara Francesca here, with Katie Payton Hofstadter, and with Nam Le, we co-founded the Aurora Network, a network of digital monuments. And the question that we were posing was, why are there more horses than women and gender diverse artists on the pedestals? And we were starting to collaborate with artists from all over the globe, from very different communities. And that was just really, really amazing. We started in New York City, and we talked to a couple of city council members who were like actually really fond of the project, yet nobody wanted to publicly support the project. And so we did it anyway. And fortunately, all the artists were on board and were just generously spending time to create these monuments. Here are 3 examples. You can see Lowe's and Apache Warrior with Columbus at Columbus Circle, by Bryce Burrell with Meredith Drum, and Cassandra with Washington at Union Square, created by Eva Davidova and Sharon Enlin. And Sue Rowe created Hattie Anderson to be paired with General Sherman on Grand Army Plaza. The second exhibition that we did was in Munich, and the Cultural Council actually supported us, but a lot of physical statues, is what I learned, are not on city public landscape, but on private properties because of some private organizations or foundations own those. And those foundations were not happy about our project when we reached out, and they would not want us to put up signs with the QR codes to the digital monuments. And so we found workarounds. We parked bikes next to those monuments, and we just put up the signs on the bikes so that it was not on their property, but on the bike. Here you see Ada Lovelace and Lucy Mehring. Lucy is by Anke Schiemann and Ada Lovelace by Joan Go. And then, like, a really big success, in my opinion, was that the AR intervention #Juliet2 by Tamiko Thiel became a part of the city landscape in Munich. It's a very controversial statue that is that is up in the city center of Munich. People touch the breast of Juliet Capulet because they think it brings them luck and better sex. And so Tamiko Thiel created this AR intervention with all these Juliets as warriors surrounding the physical statue to protect her. This is up for 3 years already, and it's going to stay up, which is great. And we also brought digital monuments to the other cities in Germany. The city of Worms just bought the exhibit because they really want to keep the exhibit permanently in their cityscape. So that is really like a huge success for us. And Berlin just reached out, so that's also great. And then we wanted to talk actually about one last project that we did very briefly, and that is about beauty. Clara, do you want to take over again?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll bet on this one, but You Are Beautiful was the name of this piece that I am really proud we took, and we've done a few times. And it touches actually a bit about what our first speaker was talking about too, in terms of like the bias inside of AI. When we did the experience, sorry, Anne, my screen to minimize it. So it's an interactive performance about the biases of graphic AI app, as it says here, and it combines performance art with state-of-the-art multimedia installation under the influence of AI, because it's heavily white, male, Western influenced for sure. And the next slide, let's go to the next one. So the audience members find themselves in Auroran, this universe that Anne was passionate about creating, that I'm glad we went with. And the motto, "The truth lies in the eye of the beholder," was sort of played on repeat as the audience came through the space. The audience had to do participatory actions in unison, as you see here, and then we simulated them creating their own internal biases to have their own team. So one team was team triangle and one team was team circle. And on the mask that you see here, that was our way to not attack any audience member personally for how their face looked, because we were about to open up the floodgates of what AI considers beautiful and not beautiful. So it was a safe, inclusive way to do that, where it sort of naturalized and neutralized everyone. But on each of the masks was a circle or a triangle. And so these two groups emerged. And Anne and I sort of played these officers in a very authoritarian, scary way to get each group to compete with the other. And as this audience is going through these stages that we're taking them through, they then go to one of the final stages where they're plugging into the computer the words beautiful human and ugly human. And I feel always very guilty actually when we show, because there's a huge bias and I mean, I find it quite traumatic that, like we saw in the early discussion, you type in the word beautiful human, and quite frankly, according to me, the computer should crash and could say, no, cannot compute this. Instead, this really feminine, young, white Asian leaning, which I think has a lot to do with white male fetishizing Asian conversations we can get into later, kept popping up on repeat. Like there wasn't any exception to this in the early days when Anna and I were working on this. And anytime ugly human came up, you see the image on the side denoting other racist demographic stereotypes there too. And the point we wanted to really for the audience to have was this immersive performance theatrical show experience where it cost them something. They are now part of the understanding that them plugging in the words in this computer to get these generated AI images out are now complicit in this conversation, and it's their collective Western data that's been put in these programs to continue the bigotism we see in the world. So I love this conversation we had earlier about let's start plugging stuff in the programs to change that conversation and see what's around the world. And I'm sure I've missed things if you want to share any other pointers.
That's all great. No,
okay.
I think that's amazing. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay,
Thank you.
let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much. Awesome work. I hope we have time to talk. Okay, everybody's doing great though. Naz, would you go next and present your work, please?
Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can. And,
beautiful.
And I stopped reading bios in the interest of time, but I guess I'll say Naz is a multidisciplinary artist. You're just out of Sarah Lawrence, right? And you're into music, performance, installation, all of the things.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's an informal intro.
Oh my
Take it
God,
away.
I was gonna talk about it as well.
Okay, talk about it. I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna launch into showing.
No, I can also launch in. I mean, I feel like once I start talking about this installation, it's all gonna come together. I decided to talk about my work.
And sorry, do you want this recorded or should we pause the recording now?
I will tell you.
Okay, you will not forget. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, keep going.
No, thank you. So I decided to talk through this because I think this had a lot of elements that was very special to me, but this was my multimedia installation that I was working on for like 4 months, and it incorporated projection mapping, AI generated work, sculpture work, and performance art, and also live recording and live sound design, as well as singing. And I have been sharing, so this is like a mind simulator to me. I'm really interested in reality and making machines and simulations to sort of turn the cube and look at the sides from different ways. And I haven't been able to share the Turkish side as much. So this is like a simulation of my mind. The Turkish side, which is like the input, the reaction to that is the anxiety, eroticism, shame, all like the mixed emotions, and then the lucid dreaming and mindfulness as like, and the technological like revolt, like as a form of like trying to find some like balance between that. But I haven't been able to talk about the Turkish side as much online, but this is a little video. Oh. Yeah. Okay. I think you can pause it now.
Well, that was amazing. Now that's going to be very, mysterious for people who didn't attend live. Thank you so much for sharing that. you said something that, again, will not be in the recording that I just want to repeat. So it's in this recording. You said, what can you do when you can't really talk about it? Which I love. And I think it's something we need to think about ourselves. Susan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. Just FYI, I've been sick. I am sick today, but I will, if I start coughing, I'm going to stop talking. But I come to the digital art world with a strong background in photography, primarily black and white. And I also come from a long time life of social activism, such as work during the Vietnam War, also establishing a food co-op that's still going after over 50 years. I also have served on neighborhood community councils. During COVID, I was on the what's called the Whitaker Community Art Team, and we made pieces reflective of the COVID experience as a group. And so I bring those two pieces together in a particular that I've been doing since 2015. And I started working on this before I got sick, but so I'm not going to apologize. It's just the way things go. I'm going to go to I did a keynote share, so I'm going to share. All right, I am going to my keynote presentation. All right, so since 2015, I have been using my own face to create art. And I started initially calling it a series, but it is so big that now Portrait of a Woman is a project with multiple series. I think I'm just going to leave this slide up for a little bit. Maybe I'll read it. Storyteller. I live in Oregon, and I work in digital representation, and I use my own experience in the world I live in, offering my lesbian aging perspective from the natural world, political events, and female aging all impact me. And in a world filled with global strife, I want to elevate and reflect our commonalities and allow for self-reflection, caring, and peaceful action. So my primary themes are love of self and our land, plants, and animals. And my 10-year Project of a Woman project intertwines these topics. So I have pieces with each of the slides. And on some of them, I have put approximate dates of when they were generated over the 10-year period. This piece right here was generated in 2025. I take pictures of myself. Anyway, these are some early pieces that are, the one on the right is digital, but the one on the left is a crossover between hard copy and then digital generated. And I did more of that in the past. All right, these are two pieces generated in entirely digital, using my own face once again. And all right. So 10 years of self-portraits. Yeah. So it's a real life project. And for a decade, I've turned the iPhone camera towards myself. And this all started from personal experience standing in front of a mirror in my bathroom here in my house. And I had a very uncomfortable experience looking at myself and realizing how old I looked. That's in quotes. And it sparked these unwelcome and harmful thoughts. And I would say within 24 hours, I realized I sort of came back from that experience and woke up and thought, oh, I'm an artist. Hello, Susan. I could use my skills to share and possibly reshape my experience. So partly is for myself, and as I share it, it becomes for others. So it drew me to utilize my personal aging experience as my primary theme, and to change my own beleaguered thinking and birth the longest and biggest project. And I would say I'm under no illusion. Those feelings, they still exist. That female, just go forward. You have to ignore it and go forward. So let's see, from this deeply uncomfortable relation emerged a decade of digital photographic edit imagery. These are some early pieces. In the beginning of the project, I gotta drink some water. In the beginning, I didn't have, of course, the awareness that I have now of the length of it. And I also wasn't as clear in my intention of what I was communicating. But as the artist that I am, I just keep going. That's one of my characteristics as an artist. I just keep going. So I was photographing and manipulating, and I began using some natural world elements, and this is some examples of that. The two pieces on the right have been, I want to say, some of the most popular. And when I say popular, I mean because people them, and I have conversations about them. I sell them as cards also. So self-portrait and the natural world. The project tells the story of aging as sustained and motivated by the natural world. I look to nature to feel alive, whole, and calm. I capture and convert the world I see, layering my own face and personalizing my world. These pieces are before and a little bit into COVID, the pandemic times. As you can see, I am fascinated by the melding of my own face with the natural world in part of the project, with the natural world elements. All my work, past, present, and future, is influenced by who I am, a woman living in the USA culture. Life experiences from childhood to now are my art topic. Identity as aging woman evolves as I recognize and live in the erasure, discounting, and trivialization of the older female voice. My goal includes offering a bigger, more robust, and varied presentation of women aging. These are over the past few years and moving closer to now. I decided to put all the blue together because it looked great together, I think. Um, these are a mixture of pieces. The one in the foreground is a little snippet of some AI work I did with a couple different, I think that was with Dream before. That's a whole other series that's connected to this project, but I'm not going to talk about today. My art is who I am, evolves from my lived life. In all phases of my art career, I've used what I feel, see, hear, touch, and live, leading me to reach for a tool to share my experience. My DNA compels me to express myself through art. I'm excited by the visual world and want to share my experience. I'm inspired by what happens inside and around me, and this includes living as a woman, lesbian artist in the USA culture. And these are newest pieces that either have been exhibited as hard copy pieces in Florida and in Oregon. The one on the left and the one upper right are pieces that I generated into hard copy prints and have been shown either just as the print or framed. And this is the actually the piece on the left is the newest piece I made while I was sick. Well, I've been sick, and the piece on the lower right is called Am I the Target? And these pieces do have names, but I was too sick to put the names with everything. But I do know that one's called Am I the Target? And it showed in them as a hard copy framed artwork in Southern Oregon for the Northwest Biennial. And these are some of the digital apps that I use to generate the work that expresses my theme of the portrait of woman. And that's the end of my keynote.
Thank you. You sound really sick. I feel bad that we made you talk for like, but thank you. Really wonderful, very personal work.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
Last but certainly not least, Heidi, are you ready?
Yep, I'm here still.
Take it away. You're still
Thanks
there.
everybody for sharing such beautiful work. I'm gonna pop my deck up. Cool. All right, so I'll just do a little intro and then move on to some work, just like the why of the work. So hi everybody, I'm Heidi Boisvert. I'm an interdisciplinary artist, experienced designer, creative technologist, and also an academic researcher. Most of my work looks at interrogating the social, cultural, and neurobiological impacts of media and technology. Simply put, I study the role of the body, the senses, and emotion in human perception and social change. In addition to being an associate professor of AI in the arts at the University of Florida, scary place, I'm also the founder and creative director of Future Perfect Lab. And part of what I do is harness the power of pop culture, emerging tech, and more recently, I've been doing a lot of neuroscience research to ignite social change. So for the past 15 years, I've dedicated myself to transforming toxic narratives through playful and imaginative experiences with the single aim of building a more just and pluralist society, one in which everyone not only belongs, but thrives. In my practice, I catalyze this change by engineering social justice messages for mass appeal through a multi-pronged feedback loop consisting of these kind of like playful and imaginative creative experiences, as well as empirical media effects research. But both of those practices are supported by co-creation workshops with community, as well as building open source tools. So today I'm mostly going to talk about the creative side, some projects. And in terms of the creative side, mostly I'm working with, co-creating projects with community through different types of multimedia experiences. And sometimes I work with also like media influencers as a way to kind of put the face of the issue into a larger public consciousness. And I use all different types of touch points, sometimes together and sometimes separate, such as, games, VR, AR, transmedia storytelling, web, theater, dance, and, I guess mediums that haven't been invented yet, kind of always trying to poke into the dark a bit. So in the past, this could take the form of like an alternate reality game to promote human rights, featuring celebs like Victor Garber here. This was played over 12 weeks, and it touched upon various issues from miscegenation to a whole bunch of things. Or it could be like an animation to raise awareness around the unfair immigration laws by teledeporting Spock. Or it could take the form of like a location-based augmented reality app to change perceptions around homelessness while actually putting individuals into actual homes and building kind of infrastructure for that. So oftentimes the tools are kind of like a promontory for larger discourse. However, after making this work for many years, using web and mobile devices, I kind of had a crisis of faith. And I began to worry that the very tools I had been using to positively influence hearts and minds to cultivate what I saw as empathetic engagement were actually harmful. So while we're not yet full-bodied prosthesis like augmented cybernetic humans tethered to cables like Major here from Ghost in the Shell, our dependence upon intelligent technology is a slow form of violence, re-scripting our nervous systems and quietly taking over our cognitive and affective faculties, quite literally changing the structure of our brain. So I guess I was concerned that we were becoming humans, we're becoming like APIs run on scripts and protocols, and I somehow felt responsible. So to tackle this, I'm not going to go into this very deeply. You're welcome to take a screenshot. I decided to go back and get a PhD, essentially, to conduct my own empirical research into the neurobiological effects of media and technology. And these are just some of the things that I discovered in the research in terms of literally our brains, the gray matter in our brains are actually shrinking. And we have a lot of difficulty. I'm sure many of you who are teachers can attest to this. It's hard to read social emotional cues. And there's an increase in kind of emotional dysregulation. So a lot of the technology is affecting key areas in the brain, the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is responsible for emotion regulation and the production of knowledge schemas, like how we make meaning in the world. So I started to like map these kind of processes and how we've moved from like external colonization in space to internal colonization, like taking over people's affective and cognitive faculties. So I guess what I'm trying to establish is like a lot of my work is sort of like a subversion or a shadow discourse or in conversation with this as a response. So what was interesting is that, many of these, there's, well, where did it come from? First of all, we have like the whole history of cybernetics and the way in which we're using computational systems today and how they're actually baked with an ethic that is around rejecting the body, regulating our emotions, and canalizing our senses, right? So I started to look at kind of like these interwoven societal kind of social forces. So from Madison Avenue to like the DSM to like cybernetics and the way in which culturally, we're kind of living in a cybernetic legacy. So my belief is we've moved a bit from like presence, mutation, and randomness to the absence, the hyperreal, and the pattern. So part of my approach in making work is really thinking about the way in which the only way to have a conversation about our technoculture at the same speed of technological innovation, as Carolyn Jones notes here, is by actually taking up these technologies in the service of aesthetics, by actually making work to subvert them. So for me, I guess I first turned to like large scale network dance and theater as a way of, as a counterpoint. And this particular piece is called Radical Signs of Life, and it's a large scale network performance. And I see it almost as an antidote to intelligent technology. So I started to bring like people into intimate, immersive physical spaces to explore the role that the body plays in social change by employing dance almost as a 3D experimental sandbox. So through responsive dance, radical attempts to externalize the mind's non-hierarchical distribution of thought. Music is generated from dancers' muscles, blood flow via biophysical sensors that capture sound waves from the performers' bodies. And then data essentially is triggered on these like screens here based on biological algorithms. So it creates these complex neural patterns. And then they're projected onto multiple screens. The other piece here is that you can't see is above, there's a bunch of connects and the audience can like interact real time to create like a non-linguistic communication. But the piece was really kind of like a, almost like a challenge in a way. It kind of revealed this legacy of cybernetics I'm talking about and was a way of awakening an urgent need to insert the body and affect back into technology before it further embeds us. It's embedded inside of us. So next I wanted to kind of like apply what I learned from Radical into a piece about more focused on social justice and in the pop culture space. So I collaborated on Beware the Dandelions with Complex Movement, which is a Detroit collective. The goal of the immersive theater project was to teach social justice movement building through complex science, through a sci-fi parable. The work integrates a data-driven narrative with game-based collaborative problem solving communicated through live hip hop and DJ performances. Essentially, the participant players control a 3D game engine, which is mapped into this 24 by 12 foot sentient pod. And the players are spatially triggering real-time story content consisting of data visualization, surveillance cameras, systems communication, and embedded clues and puzzles. So after that, I realize that a lot of the work that I'm doing in the social justice space is actually rooted in epigenetic trauma and that our bodies are actually archives of story. So Walking Wounded served as both a living lab and a multimedia performance, transforming trauma through movement, sound, and imagery generated once again from the performer's somatic and autonomic nervous system. So the idea was to try to give expression to unspeakable personal and collective experiences of trauma through bioadaptive play. So in a lot of these works, like I use kind of custom biosensors that I build that read your autonomic somatic nervous system, environmental data, different types of data, lots of data, I guess, is kind of like my jam. So I know we only have a limited amount of time, so I'm just gonna jump ahead here. So I guess in addition to some of the large scale dance and theater work, I also co-curate a live performance series. So during COVID, we ended up moving online to this like 3D space called Nowhere, but we started it at the new museum in New York. And I co-curated this with Kat Mustasia. And the goal really of the performance series was to explore like our complex relationship to the digital and look at the many ways that like interactivity, games, robotics, and wearables and AI and other digital technologies inform like new practices in performance. But also the idea is many of the artists we'd invite to the salon were also using the tools as a form of critique or what I might call like applied media theory. So yeah, so I guess there was that. And then Kat and I decided to start making work as well once kind of like, you know, COVID emerged. But most notably, one of the things that I think, hold on, oh my God, I can't believe somebody's here. One sec.
So what's amazing to me in this group of incredible artists is how many of the
Okay, weird. I mean, like there's nobody in Florida. Like I live in isolation here. And the one neighbor calls. Okay, sorry about that.
IRL,
hopefully you
real
didn't
life
hear the dog.
interaction, Roz, you're right.
Okay, so this is Lizardly here, which is a piece that kind of emerged was birthed sort of out of COVID. And it's essentially, it's like a live mixed reality play that I co-created with Kat as well that explores AI, environmental collapse, and interspeciality. So the staging interfaces like VR and real-time motion capture and machine learning to create this kind of vivid portrayal of hybrid humans in a post-human world. So basically, you know, these guys, they're performing, and then real time, the lizards are kind of, it's real time data that's, you know, being projection mapped through Unity in a VR headset for the audience. So, but the other thing is we have this other character called June, and she's kind of like this antiquated, repurposed smart home who influences the character's surroundings through their gesture. So she's using like Mimu gloves with flex sensors, and I also use InteractML in Unity to trigger changes both in the game environment as well as like the sound and like lights in the theatrical context. So also during COVID, we incubated this thing called the Embodied Intelligent Shared Future with Sydney Skybetter and Melissa Painter. Sydney's a choreographer and Melissa's a immersive artist also. And the idea was to kind of cultivate a brigade of movers and inventors, world builders and game designers in an attempt to kind of reawaken our collective sense of embodiment. And again, this is sort of my, I'm really interested in sort of like the somatics of trauma. So the idea was to respond to the fact that our bodies carry intergenerational trauma. They're surveyed, they're controlled, and they're often spun out of control by our dependence upon technology. But the idea here was really to just kind of bring a group together of 100 people to a public space like the Los Angeles Music Center, and to co-create this kind of new choreographic gameplay experiences across multiple generations, using both chalk drawings and AR. The chalk drawings served as kind of like the markers, and then also built this like massive 100 kind of OSC bridge where we are able to gather data from 100 phones of participants doing these kind of movement exercises to generate live audio and visual system outside. So the audio, there were a bunch of speakers in the trees in the plaza. And so we created this like spatialized audio experience, essentially like a performance of 100 people collectively doing this. But it was really about bringing intergenerational communities together to talk about, well, some of the imagery is focused on environmentalism. So, sorry, I don't know if I'm over. I'm just gonna go
It's
for
okay.
the last two. Is that okay?
Please.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, so for many years, and in fact, we're remounting this show in Chicago at the Goodman in March. But for about 4 years, I was working as a technology director and designer for Theater of the Mind, which is this kind of like immersive journey inside this 15,000 square foot warehouse, where exploring how minds see and create the world around us as participants traverse these kind of unique environments and try on different types of sensory experiments. So the piece is co-created by David Byrne and Mala Goankar, and it's based on a series of like neuroscience experiments and kind of told backwards like a Gertrude Stein novel. And I was basically responsible for developing like all the tech to run the show, and that supported the show, including like 16, live stream VR stations that were broadcast. And then I also ensured that like the set, light, sounds, and physical objects, like demonstrating the scientific effects, actually worked. So in order to do that, we had like, 7 groups going through the show at any given moment every 15 minutes. So I basically had to create a custom show control systems built in like Python to automate and trigger all the environmental cues, which was a lot of stuff, like 20 Raspberry Pis and a mile of cable. But I think I'll probably close on this one. But more recently, and I guess I'll say the last one was really, the piece was really about kind of challenging our sense of perceptual reality. And part of, I guess, my belief is that, our nervous system is kind of like the interior architecture of like how we, process current consensual reality. So I think to some extent, I think the piece is still very relevant as we relaunch it in our current social political climate. So most recently, I've been collaborating with the Transforma Theater Group on Bioadapted, which is a reenactment investigatory documentary with actors actually portraying real people and scientists, paired with humorous kind of eerie fictional pieces about what our future might look like if AI propagates in unethical ways that don't serve humankind. So the work was inspired in part by the research and the tools I built for the Limbic Lab, which is something I'm not going to talk about today, which is kind of like an open source biometric lab and AI system. And the goal of that is really to like isolate the narrative ingredients that move us to act. So the lab appears in various scenes, but I also was the technology director for the show, and I designed again a bunch of like custom like OSC bridges to send data from a brain computer interface, an EEG headset, to a haptic vest, and weird stuff like that, which controlled the choreography for a couple of scenes. And then I also built this custom avatar using facial recognition so that in the grand finale, the audience basically puts ChatGPT on trial in real time by the audience, and they kind of can interrogate him around sort of the ethics. But the goal of the piece is really about investigating and interrogating and educating while delivering this kind of unique kind of science-enhanced experience using tech. And I guess the only other thing that I think is important to this discussion is, after the show, as it travels, we host conversations with to look kind of prismatically at people's hopes and fears surrounding AI. And then we also built out a media literacy program that travels with the show. So it's like a workshop that happens like when we're in different communities to allow people to use the tools and to understand how they're impacting their very particular communities. So I think I'll end there just because, yeah, a little bit about me. Hopefully that wasn't too over.
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Heidi. Your work always blows me away. Yeah. Everybody, I feel so grateful once again. That's how I started. That's how I will continue to feel. I just feel so grateful to be connected to all of these people doing amazing work that is activist in nature, but humanitarian in nature. If we have time, I'd like to just throw out a few questions to our guests, and we'll just talk as long as we can talk, I guess. Thank you for everyone for attending as well. This I kind of focus towards Eric, Naz, Verneda, but is kind of open to any of the guests. How do you approach making work or taking actions that can land you into a case of conflict, like an instance of conflict? Is this something that you think about, or when you're making this work or taking this action, is it something that is more intuitive and impulsive and felt in the body first?
I perceive where there's danger, and being a physician for over 40 years, I am very much well acquainted with how to navigate danger and how to know when to stop and how to proceed with caution, all in service of life preservation. So I approach my art much the same way, especially when dealing with AI, because AI is fraught with danger because of our current political circumstances. Anti-wokeness is now mandated for all AI here in the United States. And that makes it dangerous for people who are outside of the white male heterosexual paradigm.
So when you talk about knowing when you feel in danger, there's different ways to feel it. It's interesting you went straight to AI, because I think of maybe like Naz, who feels like she could be arrested, or Eric, who actually feels like he could. I've seen, he's sort of like, Eric, I think you undersold a little bit the confrontations I've seen with the police in the park wanting to do you bodily harm.
Yeah.
How do you guys navigate that, where you feel like there's different ways to be in danger, right? So
yeah, for AI, the danger is being stealthily disassembled and erased while you are experiencing your presence. you know, so it's psychological, vast psychological danger. There's contamination of the visual vocabulary. And I showed you some of it, but it's far exceeds what I showed here today. So the danger of AI is psychological and spiritual, you know, and it may soon spill out into the physical world. I mean, I found out earlier this year that our government sent letters to every nation that does business with the United States Embassy and to the businesses likewise in those countries to have them sign on to the anti-DEI policies and postures of the current administration. If they didn't sign on, they can't do business with whatever it is they're doing. And we feel that in the art space, you know, international art space.
I'm going to jump in and respond, Erin, what you were asking about the danger in the physical space here. Yeah, I probably did undersell it a little bit.
You did.
Starting in 2023, actively, artists were being beaten in Washington Square Park, and I mean physically beaten, held down, knees on necks. The detentions were not friendly. And any time that I was stepping out with the bell or anybody else who was with me, the risk was real that I was going to be arrested. Now, I'm an old white guy, and I try to use what privilege I have that I'm aware of to support the community. And so I know that when I go out and I can ring a bell, there are places I can go and things that I can do that the people I'm supporting, either for whatever reason, are not able to do. And the threats are very real, and that's why I take it so seriously. I may come off a little flip and light, but what I'm dealing with is a real oppression and a real suppression of expression, and we've been going through it, I mean, forever. But I deal with it directly in the park. But what I'm dealing with directly in the park, as everybody's been saying, we're seeing across the social spectrum, whether it's digitally or at work or everything here. Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert are probably the biggest, highest profile censorship thing. But it's very hard to decide to take action and stand up, not just for anybody, but for yourself. And what I find is that it's easier the more times you do it. You find a comfort in strategizing to find your own power. I mentioned that the police have guns and tasers and the power of the authority, and all you have to dig in to find. I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of resources, and I don't have a whole big community of support. And so the things that I've tried to work on are really about building community and working. I surprised myself that we've worked with the police, with the city of New York to try and find solutions on this as much as we've been stymied. But the agitating is everything. Annoyance and agitation is risky and dangerous, and I can't encourage it enough from anybody who's listening to this.
I guess, yeah, you're touching upon the thing that I always struggle with is the tightrope walk between the danger and the activism, like how much you can push. We still have freedom of press here. Like we can still post stuff. We're not going to get arrested for it. We can still say lots of things. I'm not going to say it now because who knows what happens in 5 years, whatever. I don't know. AI absolutely
people are
changes
losing their
everything.
jobs.
Sorry?
Well, I mean, I'm in Florida, right, which is just
You're
part
in-
of the USA.
Yeah,
so I
you're-
think, people are actually losing their jobs for speaking out on
Exactly.
about content, that is not in alignment with the administration. And I think part of like the practice here, which I'm wondering what we do as, as artists become dissidents and academics become dissidents here. I think it's more about like the art of withholding to some extent and building kind of like underground mycelium networks. I don't know what that looks like. We're talking about maybe cooperative servers where communities are paying for, we need different methods of organizing and communicating, I think. So here in Florida, one of the, I guess, things that we had done was called Float, which is Floridians thinking about protest environments as artists, like how do artists function within this social political climate? And, one of the ideas was around having like speakeasies, or these types of spaces. Are there other kind of like portals we can jump through to do organizing? I'm not saying not do the stuff on, activism on the street and having things that are public, but I think other strategies as authoritarianism kind of takes a stronger hold here are going to be required, and like trying to understand the context of other countries within these similar conditions. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, Eric said we don't really have any weapons at one point, or during your presentation, because you're saying you're going up against the cops.
Yeah.
But everyone here who has presented, everyone here who's a maker has really the finest weapons, if they are that. To speak to Heidi's point, there's so many different ways we can communicate. All channels of activism are valid, but I feel like really the question is the balance between the relationship between the personal and commitment to the collective, and our abilities to parse and make media. And I think it was actually during Heidi's culture hacking, right? Because this kind of slow violence that is happening through technology and capitalism and the forces that are shaping things, they're all kind of aligned. So I have another question that's for the artists who work with a lot of physical media, whether it's dance or interaction, like Anne and Clara, they have a lot of immersive, interactive, like participatory pieces. Heidi, you do a lot with the body. Naz, you build installations, lots of people. How much, like, what's the difference? And actually, Eric, again, like you engage with people. In what ways do you guys feel that having a physical presence to your work changes the effectiveness? Like, I think like both routes can be effective, but I personally feel like the body is a great way to internalize and connect. And I'm just wondering what your experience with that is, if you find it more effective, differently effective, et cetera. I don't know. Anne and Clara, are you guys still here? Maybe we could start like actually making people go through the motion of answering to Big Sister and trying to become beautiful. Like, do you feel like that has more impact than if you made something that was less physical for them, less participatory?
We do, in the lens that we sort of have been using this term when we went to Berlin this year of joyful confusion, which at the core is just in the roots of like basic 101 performance art, commedia dell'arte sort of stuff. But this idea that the audience come into a space not knowing one another in the space, and maybe some of the bias Anne and I have in our work is to bring that audience together in an active way, even if it's subconscious. And I don't have the neurological, physiological backing to support this, Heidi, but I'm happy to read more and look at what we're doing. But that through the joyful confusion, the audience comes in not really knowing what Anne and I are asking them to do. They get a bit perplexed, it shakes them up, and then they find friendships and community in doing that. I love Anne to speak Butterful, but one of the first projects she and I took together to Austria was a piece called Inescapable Entanglement, where I was really moved that we ended up having all the audience literally flock with me. They followed very basic gestures with movement through space, and then they touched the plant wave that was connected to a tree to get the tree to talk. And all these folk that, would resist getting to know one another and come from different backgrounds, very, very heavy science backgrounds, were not engaging together, all of a sudden were. So I think there's power in that. Because then it speaks to the underneath what the pieces are that we're making. Anna?
Yeah, I think the experience for audience members is more intense if they are actually interacting and doing something physical. At least in my opinion, I'm a sound artist and musician, and I've also played a lot of concerts, and that's great. And people come and you present and they have a great time. Yet it is so absolutely different if people come and then they interact, or even they are invited to become the artist, to create something together, because it shifts the energy of the room to a certain type of togetherness that nobody signed up for, yet it kind of seems to just happen. And I think this is a very powerful tool. And this is why we also try for all our shows to be very like very, very accessible and open to people from all types of backgrounds and ages and communities, so that we can actually invite people in, people, period, no matter who, so that we see like tiny kids playing with 75-year-old people, and they look at each other and then they're just doing it. And also, like from our experiences, the phase after a show is over is very different if the audience was a part of the show. Like the conversations are much more intense, and people have like this urge to actually talk about it rather than, hey, yeah, I've been to this concert, it was great, right? And that's kind of it. But if you have like these interactive experiences, yeah, it really fascinates me. And then on top of that, honestly, after we came out of the pandemic, I have the feeling that people long to touch and they long to be together. And so like I started working with these very basic MIDI controllers that just work with skin conduction, because people just love that. It's so easy to do. They can touch the stuff, they can touch each other and create circles and play together. And that just, yeah, that makes my day, like to see that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I also feel like we're at a deficit for connection and empathy in an analog sense. And it seems to me this is something that everyone today is interested in who's presenting work. I also wonder, because everyone here is making pretty personal work, how much people feel like the call to activism is actually a choice. I think it's obvious. No, some people, definitely some people in the group, it's not necessarily a choice, right? Your life circumstance demands that you examine reality, the status quo, question, and rebel. And I just wonder how many people feel like, who presented today, feel like they could be doing anything else, or be happy, content, just making work that wasn't socially engaging.
Well, I would.
You would. You actually did say that to me the other day, that you didn't want to do it, but you had to because the cops were harassing you and everybody, and like you were the guy.
I told the cops, the cops and the Rangers at the very beginning of this, I said, all I want to do is sit on my chair and hang out and on my comfy cushion. But I was driven to, because I knew once they started picking on one person, one artist, one musician, it would go all the way around. And sure enough, it did. And so I jumped in the fray because I had to, because everybody had to. And it changed my entire work. A lot of the stickers that I have out, I never would be putting stickers out about unfuck the park or things, you know, really the butterfly revolution, all these things that we did to brand it, to bring the community in. And just to add on the physical thing, the ringing of the bell in the circle is a call out to the community. And when I go around, I have a large voice, and it fills the circle. And so when I call, and I don't know if anybody's been there, but when I call it out, you can hear it all the way around the park. And when I make the call, I am living art, you are living art, you are living living art, and people call back, you are living art. And they take it and it becomes a callback all the way around the circle with people who are from out of town, from in town, who know the call, who don't know the call. And they all it becomes a beautiful call of joy in the midst of the madness and anger that it came out of. It becomes a call of joy and community.
Awesome.
And since then, it's a weird celebrity where I'll walk through town and all of a sudden somebody that I don't even know calls out, "We are living art," or "I am living art," or "You are," and just to hear that randomly is really beautiful.
You're the living art guy.
We are the living art guys.
We are the living art guys. All right, I think we're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes at 2 o'clock. We went a little late, but I wanted to ask a general question, which is, it's always a difficult one for me. How do we avoid preaching to the choir? Because everybody who's attending here is likely in high agreement and excited by everybody's work and words. How do we get out of our own bubble to connect? Anyone? I mean, no one really has to have an answer because I think it's a difficult question, but.
Well, you carry it wherever you go. You know, you make it contagious when you carry it into your life. And you know, we have different lives, all of us, and we all have a bigger life out there besides the circle where we sit right now. So if we take what we learn here with us wherever we go, then it's going to rub off on people. You know, unless you're totally introverted with it. If you share it, those who are in sync will start to hum along with whatever frequency you're giving off, you know, and they will learn and incorporate, and maybe the frequency will change, maybe not, but then they'll find like people, ripple effect, you know.
We have to, so, yeah. So I have a follow-up question to that. Are we obligated to do that as artists?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes, we are. You're your brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I'm my family's keeper.
The main thing that we show and display in any of the work that we do is our authenticity. And I think that that's what resonates. That's what's going to resonate with us as this little circle, but it also resonates with anybody who comes across us. As long as we're authentic, and authentic means that we are committed to whatever it is we're doing. That is something that is undeniable, and I think it's also common. And I'll be quiet now.
I mean, that's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you, Stephen. Everyone here, I know most of you are pretty authentic, wonderful humans. And I feel honored to be amongst who I think this group are some of the greatest potential defenders of reality right now and life. And I thank you for joining us. We're going to stop the recording and we can continue to discuss and Q&A, whatever you like. It'll be more free form, hang out and chill. But thank you everybody for coming. Thanks for my wacky.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everyone.
Erin, very much.
Yeah.
It was great seeing everybody and hearing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Erin, for organizing this, coming up with the topic. As some of you might know who are kind of regulars here, we have this after party, which goes on after the Zoom recording is stopped, aka the advisory board. So that's where things get worked out and decided upon as far as upcoming salons. It was proposed in the very early days of Techspressionism that we have an advisory board. And I sort of reacted violently against the notion of that. So I thought the people that stick it out long enough to hang out after the salon get to decide on things like what happens for the next salon and talk about exhibition ideas and all that other kind of good stuff. So yeah, today's salon was really an illustration of how this group can function uh, as a social sculpture, with these new armatures kind of like branching off. And I think what Erin did by bringing in her own sort of personal network of artists that she knows that are relevant is a great model to grow this and to just open it up. So yeah, I just like to thank all the presenters, really incredible work, and hope to see you guys at upcoming salons. So with that, what was that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, we will stop the recording then in 3, 2, 1, and cut.